Welcome to the Rebellion Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Staker. All right, it's here. I couldn't wait any longer. I probably should have dropped this episode in October to get fans, excited for the season that's about to start. We're still a bit of ways. We got a few more months to go. But I'm too excited. I couldn't wait any longer. So I'm doing it now, right? So this is the preview to the 2025-2026 UNLV men's basketball season, okay? Roster review, predictions, all of that stuff. Wrapping everything into one episode as far as what we can expect from this team this upcoming season. What can we expect from these new players? And then also diving a little bit into what happened last year and why we should be more optimistic than we've been in years. There are a lot of people out there that scoff at that, right? And they have every right to, right? We had a lot of people that could roll their eyes and be like, yeah, we heard that last year. We heard that the year before. I totally get it. I don't deserve to have anyone take my word for it. I predicted we were going to make the tournament last year. A lot of people said that last year's team wasn't going to be very good, that our players weren't good, and I said they were wrong. And I dropped a lot of content explaining why I thought they were wrong and explaining why that team was going to surprise people. That team was going to get UNLV back on the map. And that's not what happened. So I have not earned the right to have you trust me into believing in this team for the 2025-2026 season. Okay? All that being said, though, I'm going to give you a lot of reasons why you should be optimistic. There's a difference between optimistic and saying we're definitely going to be good. So just prepare yourself. It is a new era. We are now in the Josh Pastner era. If you've heard my previous episodes where I talk about Josh and why he was the perfect hire, despite the fact that I admittedly did not like the hire when it first happened. I wasn't having a meltdown and saying we're doomed and this is a horrible hire or anything like that, but I was not excited. But I've since then admitted wholeheartedly that I was wrong. And not only do I not think that this was a bad hire, I think this might have been the best hire that we could realistically get. Okay? I talked a lot about that in previous episodes, but I'm going to touch on it again in this one. There's a lot to talk about. Okay? I'm going to go over everything that occurred last season. I'm not going to go spend much time on it, but basically explaining what went wrong. And then I'm going to start to break down our roster. I'm going to go over each player, my thoughts on them as a prospect, what we can expect from them, what they bring to the table. This team is talented. This team is athletic and long and can run. This team is built to win. We have not had a roster like this since Dave Rice. That to me isn't a debate. It is not a debate. We have not had this much talent and athleticism since Dave Rice. The debate is, will we be good? That's a whole other story. This being the best roster on paper since 2015, 2016, not a debate. It 100% is the best roster we've had in a decade, and that in itself should be a reason to be optimistic, okay? All right, so I'm going to take a different approach with my mindset going into this season and my predictions and everything that I have to say about this team, right? Last year, I had just started my podcast, and my goal was I'm going to sell people on last year's team, even though I had a lot of reasons to doubt that we would be good. I'm going to sell everyone on this team. I'm going to give you reasons why you should believe in that team. I'm going to give you plenty of reasons why you should believe that that team is going to be successful and win games and make it to the tournament. And if we did end up making it to the tournament, if we did end up having a good team despite the fact that people thought we wouldn't, that would give me credibility. That was my whole plan. Okay? That completely went down the drain, though, with last year's team because they were not very good. But I am going to defend myself to an extent. There were a lot of things that happened that I flat out just did not see that coming. Some of them were things I should have predicted, and others not so much. So first of all, let's talk about Kevin Kruger. The Kevin Kruger era came to an end. Now, there were a lot of people that thought he should have been fired the year before, but we were coming off of his most successful season as a coach. He made it to the NIT. He won 2 NIT games, and the team was, in my opinion, just as good as everybody in the conference by the end of the season. The problem is you have to go off of the entire season when you decide who's going to the tournament in that sense. So we didn't have a good enough resume from the start of the season to the end of the season to make the tournament. But based off how we were playing in February and March, we were just as good as any team in the Mountain West. Okay? So Kevin did a good job of turning that team into a winning team. The problem is you have to be good in the early season too. And Kevin seemed to just not figure out how to get the teams to win in November and December. Every year we started off just with this disappointing team that wasn't fun to watch, and they got better as the year went on, but it was too late at that point. The exception being his second year, okay, when we started off 10-0 with a really weak schedule, and then the team just never got better and did really poorly in conference. Okay, that's the only exception. Every other season he had, we were crap early in the season, and then by the end of the season, we were a top 4 or 5 team in the comp. So that's what Pastner needs to do, is win in November and December. That's what the fans want to see. We've had too many seasons where we won early in the season, but not in conference, or vice versa. Okay, we need to put it all together. All right, so Kruger just could not get it done. Kruger was similar to Dave Rice in the sense of he has a lot of tools that give him the potential of being a really good coach, but he's lacking certain qualities that prevented him from reaching his full potential, that prevented him from being a coach at a high level. I don't see him ever becoming a successful head coach. Maybe if he drops down to a lower level, Division II, something like that, I could see him landing some gig where he's successful. But I think, again, very similar to Dave Rice, he was just lacking certain personality traits that was preventing him from getting the most out of his players. We saw too many players come through UNLV with all this talent, and then they didn't play as good as they thought they would, or as we thought they would, or they started off hot, and as the season went on, they changed. They weren't the same player. Their minutes dropped, or we had really talented freshmen sitting the bench, and then they would go on to new schools and kill it. Perfect example being the two Keishons. Keishon Gilbert, Keishon Hall. Keishon Gilbert was a star in November and December, and then something happened as the season went on. His production dropped off. He started scoring a lot less. His minutes went down. You could see the frustration on his face. You could see the body language that was very similar to that of DJ Thomas in his sophomore year. Something wasn't right. Kruger just put out this fire that was in our players and got them discouraged. They lost their confidence. Keishon Hall would get random big minutes every now and then score like 18 points or 15 points or 14 points, and then sit the bench the next game, all right? And then he goes on to become a huge star. It's just killing it at his next school. So he wasn't able to utilize talent. He wasn't able to get the most out of his players, and it really showed, unfortunately. But I don't want to spend time talking about Kevin Kruger because that's not what this episode is about. This episode is about the new Rebels. That being said, a few more thoughts on last season. Losing Rob Whaley, that was one of the biggest reasons that I ended up being wrong about the team. The reason we weren't successful that I did not see coming was that we weren't going to get Rob Whaley for basically the whole season. We didn't have him. Okay. He was supposed to be a very key piece to that team. He was exactly what that team needed. The team needed a bruiser. They needed a big guy down low that can get you buckets. They needed an enforcer, size and strength. We didn't have that last year. That's what Rob gave us. Losing Rob killed us. And Rob saw the writing on the wall that team wasn't going to be very good. He wasn't happy. It was the same thing that we saw from other players. So he quit on the team. He could have came back and played and helped us, but he didn't. He quit on the team. All right. And too many players, frankly, on last year's team did not meet expectations. Right. They were not the player that I thought they would be. Okay. And again, that's on me. I guess for some reason I thought that they would improve because typically that's what you would expect from young athletes who get older and more experienced, that they would get better. And they just did not get better. Okay. Jalen Hill. I mean, I really thought we were going to get a star with Jalen Hill when he transferred from Oklahoma. He was only okay. Like, he did a lot of little things that don't show up in the stat sheet. He was athletic. He could defend. He did a lot of things. He was better than like his stats suggest, but he was far from the star I thought we were getting. And then Brooklyn Hicks didn't improve at all, at least very little from freshman year to sophomore year. I didn't see that coming. Jalen Bedford was our highest rated transfer we had. He was a 4-star transfer. He was a transfer that we competed with power conference schools to get. He ended up not being very good. He had a negative net rating. And if you don't know what net rating is, I'm going to get into that later. But yeah, Bedford wasn't the star player that I thought we were getting. And then lastly, above all else, Didon Thomas Jr., the guy that I hyped up like he was going to be, a candidate for the Bob Cousy Award. Is that what it's called? The best point guard? Is that the Bob Cousy Award? I don't know. You get the point though, right? Didon Thomas Jr., I don't want to like beat a dead horse. One of my favorite Rebels of all time. For whatever reason, it was sophomore year was just a disaster. He didn't get better. Okay. He had, just like Bedford, he had a negative net rating. So in terms of advanced stats, Didon Thomas Jr. wasn't good at all last season. And the reason for that is he played too much hero ball. And a lot of this can fall on Kruger to not figure something out and make changes. But our offense, like, we revolved around Didon Thomas Jr. like trying to drive to the rim and make plays and make very difficult shots over big, tall, athletic guys. And it just didn't work, okay? It wasn't until he left the team that our ball movement got so much better in the cutting, and we actually looked like a team. That's why the team was better after Didon's departure. And then Didon, from what I understand, could have come back at the end of the season and helped. Made a business decision, knew he was done with UNLV. He's off to LSU. Again, I've talked about that so much in so many other episodes. I don't want to get into that too much. So to wrap all that up, there was a lot of things that went wrong. Why that team just wasn't good last year. There was a lot of things that could have, if things would have happened differently, the team would have been a lot better. But this is where we're at, okay? The team was disappointing. It was arguably the worst team in Kevin Kruger's tenure, which is unacceptable considering that's your 4th year. And that was arguably his worst team. So it was, I think most people were in agreement that we needed to go in another direction, which brings us to Josh Pastner and his new look team, or the new Rebels we have. All right. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just, before I get into why I think we should be excited about this team, why we should be optimistic, all that, I'm going to just go over every single player on the roster and talk about him. All right. So first of all, Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, the transfer from Illinois. So I watched a lot of film on him. He was someone who, interestingly enough, both his sophomore year and freshman year, he started the season off looking like he was going to be, a star, or maybe not. If not a star, he was going to be a very key player to the success that the Illini had. Like, he was going to be the 6th, 7th man. He was going to, ignite that team with his athleticism and his defense and his spectacular plays. A very athletic, talented guard who can do exciting things. The perfect guard to have come off the bench, right? Like, that was supposed to be his role, and it started off that way. So something I found interesting about Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn is he had his season high, the first game of the season last season for Illinois, which I believe was 21 points. That was his season high, first game of the season. So fans were like, "Oh, dang, Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, I think we're gonna have a star on our hands." Dropped 21 points in the season opener. Ended up only averaging like 5 points, something like that. And then his freshman year was the same. Season opener, he had his season high, 18 points. Okay? So what happened that led to his minutes decreasing? That's the big question mark, okay? Another thing that I read in an article, because I'm trying to learn as much as I can about all of our players, that his mom actually caused issues, and she was yelling stuff at the coaching staff during games. Again, don't shoot the messenger. This is just something I read. Though I highly doubt Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn's mom's listening to this. So I'm not too concerned with that, okay? What I look at is that he was very close to being a very key player, a key piece to a really good, really talented top 25 Illinois team, okay? Like, he was really close to being one of the main rotation guys. He was, and then he wasn't, okay? So that potential's there. He could be I mean, if I had to rank the guys in the team with the most potential, he's got to be top 3 because he has out of this world athleticism, out of this world. All right, maybe I'm being a little over the top, but just go on YouTube and search Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn dunk, and he's only 6'1". You got to keep that in mind. He's had a few dunks, but there's one in particular where he gets a steal or a kick out or something like that. He's on a fast break, and he's on the fast break, and he jumps from it looks like about 4 feet inside of the free throw line, cocks it back like LeBron style, and throws it down. A very, very impressive dunk. So that is a preview of what we could see in the Thomas and Mack. Now, from what I've seen from him, he's not a point guard. He's more of a shooting guard. And his role with Illinois was more of a go in and play great defense and get out and run, do some exciting things to be that spark, right? To keep the fans into it, to keep your team into it, so there's not a drop off when the bench comes in. One of those guys that you need coming off the bench. But I never saw him really bringing the ball up the court. Okay, so he usually would just run right to the corner or to the wing position. So I don't know if he's going to transition to more of a point guard role at UNLV. But that's something I wouldn't say to be concerned about, but as far as predicting where he fits on this team, if we're going to slot him into that starting point guard spot, well, that's concerning in the sense of like who's going to be our main playmaker, who's going to run the offense, who's going to be the quarterback essentially of the offense, and we don't know yet if Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn is capable of being that guy. But at the very least, we're getting a guy who's going to be exciting, a guy who is going to keep the defense on their feet because he can blow by you, and a guy who can blow the roof off the building in the Thomas and Mack because of some amazing dunk he had on a fast break or an alley-oop or something like that, okay? So I think it was a very good pickup because it's a guy who got a lot of experience playing in the Big Ten, playing for a really, really good program in Illinois. So taking the step down in competition, this is a great opportunity for him to flourish. Okay, next we have Ladji Dembele, okay, transfer from Iowa. So very interesting player because he got a lot of playing time as a freshman and sophomore at Iowa. And when you look at his stats, they don't really jump out to you as anything too exciting because he averaged like 4 points, 3 rebounds. But he started, I think it was 20 games. He started 20 games his sophomore year. So you have to ask yourself, okay, his stats aren't the best, but he has to be doing something of value to be playing that many minutes. Okay? So there's something he's doing out there. Maybe he's setting great screens. Maybe he's running the offense to perfection. Maybe his frame, because he's big. He's 6'8", he's 6'8", like 260. He's a beast. He's probably the biggest, strongest dude we have on this team. So, yeah, and it's probably, and it's not even close. He's the biggest, strongest guy on the team. He's an absolute unit, okay? So there was something of value, clearly, that he was bringing to Iowa that kept him on the court. He was also a highly ranked transfer. Okay, he was a top 200 4-star transfer. Okay, so he was a big pickup for us. Where does he fit on this team? I think right now he'll play mostly. It'll be center, power forward, depending on who he's in there with. What's really interesting about Dembele, though, is despite his frame and despite like how big he is, he's a good 3-point shooter. He doesn't shoot a lot of threes, but he can shoot. He has nice looking form on his shot. He shot almost nearly 40% from 3. So that's awesome. To have a guy like his size that can stretch the defense, come out on the perimeter, very valuable. Okay, so that's Ladji Dembele, the transfer from Iowa. He has 2 years of eligibility remaining. Okay, next we have, in my opinion, the number one addition that we got in the transfer portal, the best player that we got in this whole offseason, the guy who's going to more than likely be the best player on this team. Okay, and that's Kimani Hamilton from High Point. Kimani Hamilton was a 2-time Big South first-team member. That in itself is very impressive. to be first team is a great honor. And he was High Point's best player for the last 2 seasons. High Point would have beaten UNLV the last 2 seasons. High Point was really good. So Kimani Hamilton wasn't just High Point's best player. He's also very talented. He was a top 100 recruit out of high school, 4 stars. He was the Mississippi Player of the Year. He originally signed with University of Mississippi, out of high school. Long arms, athletic, 6'8", 6'9", somewhere in that range. He offensively, he plays like a small forward. He actually has a lot of similarities to Mike Moser, but I would say arguably more talented than Mike Moser, okay? More, a better athlete, bigger and longer than Mike Moser, I would argue. And he did basically everything for High Point. His advanced stats were so good that they were almost on par with Cooper Flagg, because you don't just run the ball through him on offense and let him cook and make plays and bring the ball up the floor as a 6'8" guy, but he's also a very versatile defensive player. He can defend multiple positions, so he's extremely valuable. All right, absolute home run transfer addition to this team, Kimani Hamilton. People don't realize how big this was getting him. They don't realize it. Kentucky was recruiting him. You don't believe me? YouTube, Kimani Hamilton, Kentucky. There's a video of where they're breaking down his game and talking about, could he be the guy that leads the Wildcats back to the Final Four? Arkansas, John Calipari, they were targeting him. I mean, we're talking about big-time programs that were recruiting Kimani Hamilton, and he's going to be a UNLV Runner Rebel next season, or this season, I should say. Absolutely awesome pickup. Okay. Next, we have Howie Fleming Jr. He is from University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. All right, I really, really wanted this dude when we were recruiting him, because as soon as I found out a player was visiting, I started researching them, looking at what they've done at their previous schools, all that stuff, right? And I think he is so underrated. And before people say, like, oh, you think everyone's good, like, of course you would say that, yada, yada. I think this guy is on another level than Jalen Bedford was when you really break down stuff to details, okay? And the reason I compared him to Bedford is Bedford was a top 200 4-star transfer, whereas Howie Fleming Jr. wasn't rated. So why am I so high on Howie Fleming Jr.? First of all, very experienced. This is his 5th year, and he has experience playing at different schools and getting a lot of minutes at different schools. And he had an absolutely monstrous season last season. Not necessarily like he averaged these incredible numbers, though his stats were really good. Okay, he averaged like 6.5 rebounds a game as a guard, which is awesome. Averaged like 12.5 points. He was like a little over 2 assists. So the reason I'm so high on him is this dude has got to be one of the most statistically efficient player in the country. Okay, like he does everything. Okay, and there's stats to support that. He shoots over 40% from 3. He shoots over 50% from the field goal. Free throw percentage was only in the 70s. If his free throw percentage was in the 90s, then he's in that 90-50-40 club that very few NBA players are in, like Steph Curry, Steve Nash, guys like that are in that club. Okay, it's very hard to be in that. He's almost in it. Extremely efficient. Also, his advanced stats were among the best on the team, next to Kimani Hamilton. He was extremely valuable to his team last year. And this is, again, a guy with really good size who can shoot and defend. Okay, so he's that 3-and-D prospect that is so valuable to any type of roster. We always want 3-and-D guys. Well, that's Howie Fleming Jr. I think last year it was Jaden Henley, the one I was like, you guys are sleeping on him. He's better than you think. I ended up being right about him. I was right about some things last year. Jaden Henley ended up being the best player on the team, even over DJ Thomas. And again, advanced stats support me on that. And the eye test. Saying the same thing about Howie Fleming Jr., okay? He's going to be better than people are expecting. And unless he comes in and there's so much talent and competition on this team that he crumbles and loses confidence, that could totally happen, okay? But if he's getting good minutes, if he's getting 20-plus minutes a game, he's going to be very, very, valuable to this team. Okay, Tyrin Jones. Oh, I actually ranked Tyrin Jones as a top 10 most talented UNLV player since 2011. Okay, I made a ranking where I ranked the top 15 most talented players since 2011. It's a random ranking, I know. I really wanted to focus on that like post Long Kruger era of players. And I ranked 1 through 15 the most talented players to put on a scarlet and gray, run a Rebel uniform, and Tyrin Jones was number 10. There's another player on this roster even higher than that. So yeah, I believe some random guy on the internet, I believe we have 2 players on this team who are top 10 most talented player that we have had since 2011. Guess what? I don't have either of them starting. So that shows you how high I am on this team. All right, let's talk about Tyrin Jones. Very highly ranked player out of high school. He I think he's from Utah, or he's from Vegas and then played in Utah, something like that. He is 6'9", long, bouncy. The guy can windmill the ball like it's nothing. He runs like a gazelle. I mean, this guy is going to be an NBA player if he works hard, okay, because he has that much talent. I expect him to get into the rotation this year just because of everything he brings to the table, the tools, like being able to defend and get out and run and get out into a fast break. There's some highlights of him just throwing down just a badass dunk on a fast break. So this guy's not afraid to punch it on your head. This guy's not afraid to rip the rim off. He's going to be very good. He's going to be very good. How good is he going to be as a freshman? That I don't know yet. Again, I don't have him starting. Okay, but he's going to be very good. His potential's through the world. Okay, so hopefully, best case scenario, he is able to be a key piece to this team, use his talent, his length, his athleticism to get minutes, whether it's minutes off the bench or even becoming a starter, and then not transfer to get more money, stay, and then next year as a sophomore, blow up, okay? Because he's a guy who, at 6'9", plays more like a small forward. Now, his ability to shoot the ball is the one I'm questionable on. Can he shoot the ball? That is what's really going to be a big indicator of how good he's going to be, is his ability to stretch the defense and shoot the 3 ball. Because right now, he's more of that like slasher, fast break, Derek Jones Jr., Billy White. I don't know if you remember Billy White from San Diego State, kind of has that skill set as well. So if he's able to add the 3-point shot to his game, it's going to be terrifying for the opposition. Next up, we have Al Green. Al Green is a transfer from Louisiana Tech, whom admittedly is a player that I might myself be sleeping on, as I haven't projected him in the various different starting lineups that I've played around with. But this is a kid who really can light it up from the 3-point range, and is another player that Josh Pastner brought in that can legitimately shoot threes. Josh brought in so many shooters, and as a fan who is a big supporter of analytic-based basketball and loves 3-pointers, it's nice to see, because we brought so few good shooters in the last few years under Kruger. I want to say, like, Pastner might have brought in just as much, if not more, transfers who shot above 40% from the 3-point line that Kevin did in his entire tenure. But that is Al Green to a T. Now, if you look at Al Green's game log at Louisiana Tech, which is always like one of the first things I do when UNLV gets a new transfer, you could see that he saved his best basketball for the end of the season. Now, little things like this always is something that I like to see, because it kind of makes you think, okay, maybe they figured the D1 game out and they kind of got a rhythm going, and they started gaining confidence, and then now they started showing the player that they're capable of being. So, for example, he had his season high, the very last game of the season, in the tournament, Conference USA tournament against Middle Tennessee State, where he had 28 points and 9 rebounds. Okay, very impressive numbers. Interestingly enough, he didn't hit any 3-pointers in that game. He was 0 for 2 from the 3-point line. I actually consider that good news, because that means he's not a one-trick pony. He can score in a variety of ways. And there was a nice little write-up I saw about Al Green on Twitter yesterday, where someone went really in-depth into his game. And I guess he's someone that can score the ball in other ways aside from just spotting up from the 3-point line. He actually has a lot of moves in his repertoire. So I've been so high on Howie Fleming Jr. this whole time and kind of slotting him into that starting wing position. But it'll be a battle between these two as who could start that starting shooting guard, small forward spot. Now he's listed Al Green is listed at 6'3". They just posted a picture, I believe it was yesterday, of Al Green standing next to the latest member of the Running Rebels, Walter Brown, who I'm going to talk about in a minute. And Walter Brown is listed at 6'5", and Al Green is listed at 6'3", and they were standing side by side, and Walter Brown had maybe 1 inch on him. So either Al Green is 6'4", or Walter Brown is actually 6'4" and not 6'5". Either way, it's a good he has some good size on him, and I think this is a really good pickup. He'll be battling it out with a few different players for those starting wing minutes, and it's nice to have so many shooters on this team. So some other big performances he had last season. The last regular season game of the season, he had 20 points against UTEP. He had 19 points against San Houston State, and then he had 16 points at Middle Tennessee, February 20th. And then he had 18 points against Liberty on the road on my birthday. And he had a lot of games where he really got hot from three. I'm talking 4 for 5, 3 for 5, 4 for 6. This guy can really light it up, and I think he's a great addition to the Running Rebels. Okay, next we have Mason Abbittan. Mason Abbittan, another shooter. This team is full of shooters, and it's so exciting. Just knowing that, there's so many different lineups we could put out there and stretch the defense and cause the opposing defense to really have to think about what they're going to do to defend us, as we have so many different options of guys that can just drain the three ball. Make no mistake that Mason Abbittan is another one of those players. He's a local kid from Coronado. Mason Abbittan is from Coronado. I haven't been able to watch him play live yet, but I have watched a good amount of highlights on YouTube, and a great size for a guard. That's the thing that stands out the most to me. You love when you see a player coming in who's 6'6", 6'7", and they're listed as a guard, right? Because that means you always want a big lineup, right? So when you have a guy who's 6'6", 6'7" at the guard position, automatically you can play him at the 2, you can play him at the 3, you can even play him at the 4 in a small ball situation. So that's a really good thing to see. So as an incoming freshman, this is a guy who can really take this time to get used to the Division I game, get better, play against some really good competition every day in practice, and then hopefully develop. You always love to see guys stay home. Vegas kids stay home and then represent their hometown. So Mason was one of the players that we were able to hold on to when they made the coaching change. I was thrilled that Mason and Tyrin Jones stay committed to the Rebels despite Kruger having to exit the program. So it always makes it feel, as a fan, you love it because it always makes it feel like they're putting UNLV first, okay, versus they're not just committed to a coach. I love it when players do that. So I don't know how much playing time we're going to expect to get from Mason this season, but again, so much potential, and you can never have too many shooters. I can't say that enough, okay? Next we have Isaac Williamson. So I love the fact that we stole Isaac Williamson from New Mexico. If you don't know already, Isaac Williamson was a New Mexico commit, and then with their coaching change, he flipped, and now he's going to be a running Rebel. So Isaac is going to be battling against New Mexico 2 to 3 times a year starting this season, and I'm sure that's going to be an interesting dynamic with their fans, knowing that he was originally going to be a Lobo. Again, this is one of those guys that's hard to predict, how good they're going to be, because you just don't know how someone is going to handle the massive jump from high school to Division I. But I've done a lot of reading on Isaac Williamson, and he has the potential to be really good. He actually could be one of the biggest dark horse sleepers on this team to start as a freshman, because he's a true point guard, and we don't have a lot of depth at the point guard position. Like I said, we have Myles Che, who I think is probably the favorite to start, and then Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, who is more of a shooting guard. So there's an opportunity for Isaac Williamson to step in and get some minutes as a freshman. It's, again, hard to predict with someone like him. He is someone who can light it up from 3. About everybody on this team can shoot the 3, aside from maybe 2 or 3 players. Everybody can shoot, and that's awesome. And Isaac Williamson's no different. A very smooth stroke, a very good looking form on his jumper. He has a good stop and go game, good court awareness, got those traditional point guard skills that you love to see in a player. And I'm really excited for him. Hopefully our 3 incoming true freshmen, Williamson, Abbittan, and Jones, hopefully the 3 of them can stick around for a couple of years, 2-3 years, see what they can become. But unfortunately, it's almost gone extinct in college basketball. Okay, now we have Naas Cunningham. Naas Cunningham, I had pretty much he had his own episode on this podcast. Man, this dude is such a freak talent. Such a freak talent. I am on pins and needles hoping that this dude can come close to reaching his potential. He has Dra Jones Jr. type talent, okay? And if you think I'm blowing that out of proportion or I'm over-exaggerating, I'm not, okay? Evident by the fact that he used to be the number one ranked recruit in the country. He's 6'7" with a 40-inch vertical jump. And there's a lot of analysis of Naas Cunningham online, people breaking down his game. You know, there's people within the Alabama program. Alabama is where he transferred from. And they said he has incredible lateral quickness. So you have a guy who's 6'7", 7-foot wingspan, 40-inch vertical, elite lateral quickness. This is what the NBA absolutely drools over. This is as good of a prospect as you could get aside from the top elite tier one, you know, Zion, Blake Griffin, those types of prospects, right? And Naas Cunningham, what I talked about in regards to Naas on a previous episode is the good news about him is if he does reach his potential, then we have a superstar on our hands. The bad news about him is he has so much talent and so much potential that he could just have an okay season. Like, let's say average 7-8 points per game off coming off the bench, maybe have a couple big games in March, and that will be enough for a big school to throw tons of money at him to steer him away from us. Again, that's the unfortunate reality that we're in with today's college basketball landscape, but everyone should be really excited for Naas Cunningham. When I talked about earlier, when I was talking about Tyrin Jones, and I said I had two players on this team that I consider to be top 10 most talented players that we've had in the last decade, he's the other one I was referring to, okay? Naas Cunningham and Tyrin Jones, two most talented players on this team. Yeah, I don't have them in my starting lineup, which they could easily end up being starters, but I'll get into that when I talk about my starting lineup. Okay, so that was Naas Cunningham. Next up, Emmanuel Stephen, another primetime talent. I am so excited for Emmanuel Stephen. If I had to rank the guys on this team who are the most important or the biggest question mark to how successful we're going to be next season, Emmanuel Stephen is at the very top, if not number one. He's that important because he's the only true center on the roster. I'm a little surprised Josh Pastner didn't go out and get another center. I think a perfect player to bring in to add to this roster would be like a strong 6'10", fifth, 6-year veteran who is coming in with the expectations of he just wants to do whatever he can to help his team win. He's going to cheer his butt off on the bench. He doesn't need big minutes to be happy. He's going to rebound. He's going to defend. That's what this team needs. And that is what we're going to need if Emmanuel Stephen gets hurt or ends up not being as good of a player as we had hoped. He has insane talent, a 4-star recruit out of high school. He went to the University of Arizona. He didn't play much at Arizona. He was supposed to be a redshirt, but due to some injuries, they were lacking some depth. They asked him to come out of his redshirt year and help the team out. So I wouldn't worry too much about his lack of production that he had at Arizona due to the fact that he had a really late start and he was in a tough position. But he showed that he's able to put himself before the team by burning one of his years of eligibility in order to help the team win. So Emmanuel Stephen is the very first player, the first recruit in the Josh Pastner era. 7 foot long, runs like a gazelle, athletic. You know, he dunks the ball extremely easily and he can do it very quick. From the footage I've watched, he does seem like he has pretty decent hands for a big man, which is very important. And then he's obviously going to be a lob threat. He's going to be someone that provides interior defense. We haven't had a lot of shot blockers in the last 10 years. Very few that I could think of. We had David Mwoka. I'm really hoping that Emmanuel Stephen can be, at worst, a small notch above David Mwoka. I hope that at worst he gives us a little bit more than David Mwoka did, meaning he's a really good option for a guy that can alter shots down low, make the defense have to think when they drive. The good thing about shot blockers is they actually make an impact that doesn't show up in the stat sheet, in the sense that when a player on the opposition drives to the rim, they're thinking about him. They know that Emmanuel Stephen's down there, and that can impact their shot. And it could actually cause them to miss an easy layup over the fear of getting their shot blocked. So Emmanuel Stephen is someone that I really hope can be confident this year, can defend and rebound, and anything that we get from him on the offensive end will just be icing on the cake. So tons and tons of potential with Emmanuel Stephen. Emmanuel Stephen is in that category. We have about 4 or 5 guys on this team who their ceiling is the NBA. Now, when I say your ceiling is the NBA, I'm not saying this guy's going to be an NBA player someday. What else are we going to talk about? No, I mean their maxed out potential. What's the best that they could possibly be? Okay, very small percentage of people actually reach their max potential. Emmanuel Stephen is someone who, if he does reach his max potential, or 90% of his max potential, he's going to be on an NBA roster, because it's not a dime a dozen to see a 7-foot gazelle out there who can catch lobs, block shots, and then I've even seen on highlights him knocking down a 3-pointer, right? So anything he gives us on the offensive end will just be icing on the cake. Okay, Myles Che, a very good pickup from UC Irvine. UC Irvine was actually my alma mater. I don't know if alma mater means you graduated there or you went there, because I didn't graduate from there. I only played there one season. So my apologies on if that's not considered alma mater. But the school I went to was UC Irvine, and there's a little mini documentary sort of thing on Myles Che about him being the first Taiwanese player to, I don't know if he's the first, but he's from Taiwan originally, or his family is rather. And he is a true point guard in every sense of the term point guard. He finds his teammates open, a really reliable, intelligent player, very coachable player from everything I'm reading. He's the type of guy who might not be the most flashy player ever. He may not be as talented as Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, but he's going to do so many things to make the team better. And again, another good proven 3-point shooter. He shot over 40% from 3, 12 points per game. He only averaged, I think it was only like 2-3 assists per game. And that's my biggest concern with Myles is he going to be able to make guys around him better? Is he going to be able to make the right pass, the right play? He had pretty good advanced stats overall. And something surprising about Myles that I saw was he's actually, according to advanced stats, he's actually a better defensive player than offensive player. Okay, I saw the same thing. Al Green who I'm thinking is a guy that comes in can only shoot. Nope. According to his defensive rating, Al Green's a good defensive player. Howie Fleming Jr., again, another guy who, according to advanced stats, is a good defensive player. So we're bringing in a lot of guys that can not only shoot, but stats say that they can defend. And from the limited game film that I've watched, that does seem to be the case. So I'm really excited about Myles Che. He is unfortunately hurt right now, along with Tyrin Jones. But yeah, so he might not be, I don't know if he's going to be ready to go to start the season. It'll be close. It'll be iffy. If he is healthy for the first game of the season, he might be a little bit rusty due to being out for a few months. So awesome pickup from the Rebels landing Myles Che, and really excited to see what he does this year. Okay, Walter Brown. A couple weeks ago, I released an episode that the entire episode was about Walter Brown. We added in late July or early June, whenever it was, a professional basketball player to this Runnin' Rebel roster. He played professional basketball in New Zealand for the past 5 years. Okay, tons of experience. He's used to playing international basketball where they're taught the game the right way. I've watched as much film on him as I could find. Another guy that can shoot the ball, but he can give you so much more too. He can get to the rim. He has a lot of really good up and under moves. Awesome touch around the rim. He makes the right pass, so he's not just someone that can shoot. He's not just someone that can score. He's also a gritty defender. Not the most athletic player ever, but he's sneaky athletic. And if you're asking yourself, how can someone who played professional basketball play collegiate in the United States? How do you not lose your eligibility? Well, I looked into that, and for an international player to be able to play college basketball in the States when they've already previously played professional basketball, it's okay as long as they didn't lose their amateur status, meaning they were not receiving money. The only thing they were receiving is essentials for living, food and housing and that sort of thing. So that's, from what I gather, the reason why Walter Brown is eligible to play. And he is in Vegas. He's practicing with the team now. He is someone who it's again, another guy that's really hard to predict how good they're going to be for us this upcoming season. But God, with his experience and the way he plays and his size, everything apparently he's just one of those guys that wants to rip your head off, and he's a winner. He's won multiple championships playing professionally in New Zealand. He's also played professionally in Australia. It's hard to imagine a scenario where Walter Brown is not in the rotation, if not a starter. Okay, so that is everyone on the roster. I apologize for not going over walk-on players. I don't want to act like they're not helpful to the team. They are very much so helpful to the team. I don't have their names written down. I will talk about them in another episode. Okay, so I'm going to go over some reasons to be optimistic about this team, even though I already talked so much about what a lot of those reasons are. The first is Josh Pastner, absolutely a home run hire for this program, because he says UNLV is his dream job, and he really means it. Okay, it's not like Marvin Menzies, who said it was his dream job because he just wanted to live in Las Vegas and gamble and go to the best golf courses that the city has to offer. That was the reason Marvin Menzies said UNLV was his dream job. Josh Pastner is different. He says UNLV is his dream job because he wants to bring us back to the glory days. He remembers the Tarkanian days. He remembers the rivalry with Lute Olson and UNLV and all of that. He is so excited about this job. He knows what we have to offer here in Vegas. He knows that we're a sleeping giant, and he's doing everything in his power to go out and not only get more NIL money, but to get fans invested, to get fans interested. He's going on people's podcasts, people just that like regular Joe Schmoes like me. He's not going on podcasts of famous people talking about the Rebels. He is really putting himself out there in the community a lot better than any coach we've had in a very long time. Okay. There's so many more things I want to say about Josh Pastner, but I can't let this podcast go, too long. It's already been long enough as it is, but basically Josh is someone who, unlike most of the other Division I coaches, he embraces the way recruiting is now with NIL. He embraces it and actually thinks it's more efficient. Basically, you make your pitch to the player. This is what we have to offer you. Take it or leave it. We'd love to have you, but this is where we're at. Move on to the next one. Okay. He doesn't have to worry about putting in months and months and months to recruiting one player, going to all their games, going and visiting them, buying plane tickets all the time. He says the way recruiting is done today, he actually really enjoys it. Okay. So that's awesome. Okay. So Josh Pastner is a reason to be optimistic about this team. Another reason is, and I've talked about this already so much this episode, tons and tons of shooting. We have shooters for days, snipers all over the court wearing scarlet and gray. So what this means is this allows us to throw all different kinds of lineups out there that is going to cause the defense to have to be stretched out, which creates lots of spacing for gaps in drives, in ways that we can find people open, drive, kick, and cuts. A very good spread out, efficient, analytical-based offense due to so many guys on this team that can shoot, so many guys on this team that can drive and are athletic. The potential is incredible, to say the least. All right. We also have a very good balance between experience and young talent. Hey, we have some guys on this team, Walter Brown, Al Green, Howie Fleming Jr., Kimani Hamilton, Myles Che, with a lot of years of experience under their belt. And then we're sprinkling in those really ridiculous talents like Naas Cunningham and Tyrin Jones. Okay, so we have a really good balance on this team, which allows us to play with a lot of different lineups, a lot of different options, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out. Okay, advanced stats. Real quick, this is something that I wanted to mention. So I compared the incoming transfers we had last year, a year ago, with the transfers we have this year. And this should get you excited. Okay, so first, net rating, right? I talked about it already. Net rating is basically how good you are how good is the team when you're on the court versus how good the team is when you're off the court. Okay, so it's a very telling stat. Every guy we brought in had a positive net rating. Not just a positive net rating. A lot of these guys had a very high net rating. Okay, Hamilton had a 22.0 net rating. Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn had a 5.5 net rating. Al Green's net rating was 11.4. Howie Fleming Jr.'s net rating was 13.9. And then now let's compare them to the class of 2024. transfers from Kevin Kruger. Julian Rishwain had a negative 20 net rating in his most previous season where he played for San Francisco. Jalen Bedford had a negative 23 net rating for his team. Jaden Henley had a negative 5.8 net rating. The only one that had a positive net rating was Jace Whiting, who we really never even got to see. So stats don't mean everything, but they mean something. The fact that every transfer that we are bringing in have very good advanced stats, far better than the previous transfer class, I think that says something, okay? Now, on top of that, Hamilton, Cunningham, Dembele, Emmanuel Stephen, they were all 4-star transfers, okay? They're all ranked in the top 200, whereas a year ago, Bedford was the only one that was considered a 4-star transfer. Okay, so those are the reasons to be optimistic. Now, a few reasons to be pessimistic or maybe have a little bit more of a concerning outlook towards this. The first one is new players, new system. A lot of times you don't win right away, right? It takes time to figure it out. I'm trying to not get myself too excited about how this team's going to look at first. There's been too many times where we were supposed to have a good team going into the season, and then we just didn't look it in November. So I'm going to manage my expectations, understand that these guys are all figuring out how to play with each other for the first time. Though at the same time, I do have a firm belief that really good coaches, they just know how to win. They figure it out, okay? We just can't lose too many games initially. Okay, this team has to look at least somewhat good Pastner's first to start the season. Okay, so that's always something to think about. Some other concerns I have, passing. We didn't bring in anyone on this team that averaged a lot of assists. You know, even Myles Che, who's kind of more of a true point guard, you know, he didn't average very many assists at UC Irvine. A lot of that could be the style, the way they play at UCI, their system, their offense might be not the best in terms of putting Myles in a lot of position to get assists. So that's something to think about. Rebounding. We don't know how good rebounding we're going to be. Every year it seems like that's just something that is a big question mark. We don't have a lot of players. We don't have anyone that average big rebounding numbers. Kimani Hamilton, as good as he is, he didn't average a lot of rebounds. So I'm really hoping Emmanuel Stephen can be somebody that grabs boards. The last reason to be pessimistic is, you know, put simply, it's just history. We've just had so many disappointing teams. We've had so many letdowns. That's why there's so many fans that just refuse to buy in until we prove it. Okay, and it's very understandable. There are a lot of fans out there that it doesn't matter who we sign. It doesn't matter what the roster is, what the coach is. It does not matter until we've actually proven that we can win and beat good teams, consistently play well. They're not going to buy in. They're not going to be positive or anything like that. Okay, I believe in my heart that this is the losing's over. Okay, Josh Pastner is going to bring us back to where we should be. Okay, so history tells us we can't get too excited. Okay, before we wrap this podcast up, I want to make a few predictions. So first, I'm going to predict my starting lineup. I've talked about this a bunch, how this is the most difficult time as a Rebel fan to ever predict a starting lineup. I've never had this much confusion as to who's going to start on this team. Like, I really do not know. It's so hard. Partly due to the reason I gave a little bit ago with we have a lot of guys on this team who are really experienced, good players, been around for a while, but they don't have the talent as some of these younger, less experienced players. So I've changed this a lot, but this is what I came up with. Myles Che, I have him starting at point guard because I think Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn is more of a shooting guard, and I think Isaac Williamson is a true freshman. Myles Che started for a really good team last year, a team that was frankly better than UNLV. And he may not have the talent of Didon Thomas, but I think there's a really good chance that he could be a better fit for this team than Didon Thomas. And his stats suggest that not only he can shoot the ball, but he can defend as well. So I think, to me, he's the safest choice to start at point guard. And then on both sides of the wing for the small forward shooting guard positions, I have Walter Brown and Howie Fleming Jr. Okay, again, guys who have a lot of experience, good size, can shoot. Walter Brown's a professional basketball player. Howie Fleming Jr. had some of the most efficient stats in all of college basketball. That's why I decided to go with them. Starting at power forward, this was the only player that was easy pick to be a starter. He is Kimani Hamilton. I have him starting at the 4, though we could see some lineups where we go a little bit bigger and he starts at the 3. That wouldn't shock me, but right now I have Kimani Hamilton at that power forward position. And then at center, holding it down, I've changed this a few times as well, but I got to go with Emmanuel Stephen, the only true center on the roster, one of the most talented players on the roster. Again, really hoping that Josh can pull something out of him to where he is confident and he's hungry and he's tough, because having a athletic 7-footer out there that can run the court, block shots, dunk on people, I mean, can't ask for much more than that. So I think those 5 fit really well together. That's 4 players with Che, Brown, Fleming, and Hamilton that can drive and shoot and defend, and then a center in the middle with Emmanuel Stephen. So this is a really great lineup for analytics, okay, with the balance of shooters and guys that can drive and also guys that are smart, all right? So that's my pick for starting lineup. In a perfect world, the ideal starting lineup would be Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, Naas Cunningham, Tyrin Jones, Kimani Hamilton, and Emmanuel Stephen, because that's the 5 most talented players on this team, and they, for the most part, fit those positions fairly well. So in a perfect world, that would be our starting lineup. That would be, I would say, those Rice teams were really loaded, but they would rival the Rice teams for the most talented starting lineup we've had since Jerry Tarkanian if those 5 were on the court together. And they would unquestionably be the most talented starting lineup in the Mountain West. But with Tyrin Jones being a true freshman, Emmanuel Stephen being a redshirt true freshman, it's hard for me to put them as starters right now. But like I said, if those 5 could play together on the court, my God, that would be a long, freakishly athletic, ridiculous starting lineup. And even if they don't start, just seeing those 5 on the court together at any point would be awesome. All right, win total. I'm predicting this Rebel team to win 20, I'm going to say over under at 24, around 24 games. Make the tournament. Oh, geez. I really, really want to say yes. It's close. If I say no, it's not because I can really give a lot of logical reasons to why I'm saying no. It's more so just because I don't want to get my hopes up too much. I don't want to be wrong again, but for what I'm predicting, so screw it. I'm going to say this team is going to make the tournament. Okay, if Josh is a good coach and these players are as good as I think, then this should be a team that is at the top of the standings in the Mountain West and make the tournament. It's going to be close, though. I think we might have like a bubble team sort of situation, maybe similar to New Mexico 2 seasons ago. All right, awards. Player of the year, I'm going to pick Kimani Hamilton as our player of the year. I see him averaging around 14 a game. That's another thing. I think the scoring is going to be very balanced. I don't see anyone on this team averaging 18, 19 a game. I think we're going to have about 5 or 6 guys in that 8 to 13 point per game range. But so yeah, Kimani Hamilton, I got player of the year. 6th man of the year, I'm going to go with Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn. I think he's going to get about 20 plus minutes per game off the bench. He's going to have some really big games where he scores 17 plus. And if history repeats itself, he's going to have like 25 the first game of the season and then end up only averaging like 8. Defensive player of the year, I could have went with Kimani Hamilton. I'm going to go with Emmanuel Stephen. I think he's going to lead the Mountain West in blocks, and he's going to be player of the year. Okay, Rebel fans, this was so long that I think I'm going to break this into 2 episodes because I'm over an hour now. But if you listen to all of this, I appreciate your support. I'm really looking forward to this basketball season. As we get closer to the season, I'm going to put out more basketball content, more things to get us excited, more thoughts, more randomness that pops in my head. Until next time.